Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Firstly, huge thanks to Iconic Offices for having me. I'm based in Donegal, and unfortunately, we don't have snazzy offices like anything like Iconic Offices up here. So I definitely think that's the next place that you should come and jazz up some of the workspaces up around here. To give you a little bit of a background, my name is Nikki. I am an adaptive adventurer, a motivational speaker. I'm the founder of an awareness campaign called Fighting Fit for Ewings, which I will go into a little bit more information now in a second. I also work for Triathlon Ireland, and as you can see from these photos, I am a crutch user. So to give you a tiny bit of background, the reason that I'm on crutches and have been for, I would say, the guts of, been long-term crutch user for, I'd say, over 10 years at this stage. All started with a cancer diagnosis. When I was 16, I was diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma, which is an extremely rare form of bone cancer. And I found that basically my life changed overnight. I had quite a bit of surgery and huge amounts of hospital time and a lot of uncertainty, a lot of downtime, a lot of negative thoughts that were associated with my illness, all of which I learned from. My mindset changed as a result, and that's some of what I want to bring today, because one thing that I say to anybody that will listen to me is that the power of our minds and the power of our mindset is literally life-changing. We've all been challenged this year. Nobody has escaped Corona and the effects that it has had. And I don't mean the physical illness side of things. I mean that what we thought our 2020 was going to be versus the pizza on the ground, which is what our 2020 for a lot of people ended up being. Right now, I should be in Africa climbing Kilimanjaro. I should be attempting the biggest challenge that I've ever taken on. But obviously, because of the year that was in it, that's not happening. The reason that I do challenges and physical challenges is for that campaign that I mentioned, Fighting Fit for Ewings. I set that up in 2013 to give me a purpose. And that's another thing that I'm going to mention down the line, because a lack of purpose is extremely detrimental to our mental health. And all of us found that we had that lack of purpose at some point during this year, mostly during lockdown, and the effects that that can have to not have a reason to get up in the morning or whatever is extremely it can be extremely detrimental, as I said, to our health. So, soundtrack to our lives. Now, that's what I call coronavirus. Whether we wanted to or not, this is what has been playing in the background of either our televisions, our radio stations, our, I don't know, you go to the shop and you have this conversation, this constant stream of conversation about coronavirus. There is no getting away from it. And again, that can have a really negative effect on us. However, one good thing that has come from this, and one thing that I would really like everybody to focus on, is that there's been quite a lot of good that has come from coronavirus as well. For the first time ever, everybody in the world has one thing in common, regardless of race, religion, regardless of your background, your financial status. All of that went out the window this year, when we all found ourselves facing the same thing. And I think there's something really powerful in that, because it leveled the playing field and it made us all become united with this common goal to try and get past this horrible thing that's happening. Unfortunately, it left some nasty side effects and a nasty taste in our mouth. Feelings of uncertainty, loss of drive, lack of purpose, low morale, and loss of confidence. All of these things have been expressed by numerous people. There's very few people that haven't felt at least one of these throughout the last couple of months. And any one of these can have a really negative effect on our work life, our home life, our mental health, even our fitness. You know, everything that we thought we had checked off, that we had kind of ticked away in our mind, that we knew what we were doing with, it all went out the window. And if I was to just touch on one to start with, is the lack of purpose. So to go into more detail, to not have, as I mentioned already, to not have a reason to get up in the morning. During lockdown, that happened for a lot of people. Overnight, some people lost their jobs. Some people found that they were instantly told to work from home. Some people had never done this before. And they found that that morning routine that they'd had for maybe 10, 20 years before was instantly gone out the window. Even if you still had a job, If you were working from home, you didn't have a reason to put on the same outfit that you'd worn the week before, or, you know, the same type of clothes that you'd worn previously. You were suddenly finding yourself getting more and more relaxed in terms of your attire, in terms of whether you wear makeup or, you know, for the guys here, whatever, maybe you do too. For a lot of people, even things like that, that natural routine of putting on a bit of makeup in the morning went out the window. And that small thing, or like doing your hair a certain way, those small little things that were suddenly stripped away from our morning routine created this void just in our mornings. So it meant that every morning we had this feeling of uncertainty, this unidentified feeling within our chest. And with each passing day, that feeling grew to the point where you're lying in bed, your alarm goes off, and you start thinking, what's the point? You know, I'm working from home. I don't need to be there. I don't have my commute. I don't have that exact reason to get out of bed. And those negative feelings, once they start growing, they can become quite dangerous. A big one that I would say is even bigger than the lack of purpose is a loss of confidence. And a lot of people have mentioned this, that spending more time at home, for some people, they've flourished. Studies have actually shown that introverted people have actually really blossomed during this time, because all of the stressors that would have created something within them by going into work, they were all taken away. For somebody that's quite introverted, going into a presentation, having to deliver in front of people, having to even make small talk in the coffee room, they can all create a sense of anxiety that can actually be really detrimental to their work life. So they found that by working from home, it took all that away, and it allowed them to just concentrate on the job at hand, which was their actual work. So productivity levels for introverted people actually went up. However, productivity levels for people that are quite extroverted, that enjoy having people around them, that love the buzz of work, love the commute even, love just having people around them and crave that, their productivity levels went down, because they found themselves with this background, with nothing around them other than maybe a white wall or their bookshelf or whatever, and having to speak into a screen. And day after day of doing that, if they were lucky enough to even have kept their jobs during this time, day after day of doing that slowly ebbs away at your confidence, to the point where by now, a couple of months after lockdown has ended, you could still find yourself really struggling with a lack of confidence. I'm going to share a story with you that was quite a personal one. It was back when I was going through treatment, and I'd had my first, so I'm 34 now, and I've had 2 hip replacements. I've had a huge amount of surgery, but on the right hand side of my leg, I've had 2 hip replacements. And after my first hip replacement, I was left with a slight limp. And when I came out of surgery and I got off my crutches, after I did physio and all the rehabilitation, I found that I had an ever so slight limp. And that small limp, when I wasn't using crutches, created a feeling within me that something was wrong. And when I asked people, could they see the limp? They said no. But when I saw myself walking in a shop front mirror window or whatever, I would be able to see it myself. And just knowing that I was now walking different and looking different from everybody else made me feel that I was standing out in a negative way. Now, totally, I built this up in my own head. It wasn't nearly as bad as my limp is now. I now have an 11 centimeter leg length discrepancy. So if I thought it was bad then, and if I knew what I was facing, I probably wouldn't have left the house. But I found myself walking down the main street here in Letterkenny in Donegal, and I was walking with an umbrella, and I was hoping that the rain would stay, that the rain would I was probably the only person in Donegal hoping the rain wouldn't go away, because I felt safe under the umbrella. And when I had to put the umbrella down and face the world, the feeling that created was absolutely horrible. This all stemmed from within my head thinking that I had a limp, and bad enough for people to notice. It's such a small thing, but day after day, I let that fester away within my mind, and it came to a point where I was struggling to go anywhere by myself. I wouldn't walk even around the likes of Penny's, which is a big open space. I would never go in there by myself because I felt too exposed. I would only go places like that if I had people with me, or if it was extremely quiet and I knew there would be nobody there. That was all because of a lack of confidence. And the thing about confidence, it's like muscle tone. You spend months in the gym building it up, and if you stop going to the gym, you feel like instantly you've lost that muscle definition. Confidence is the same. It takes a long time to build up, but once it goes, it can feel like it's gone overnight. And that can actually have a life-changing effect. So how do we get back to where we once were? The one thing I would say is stop watching the news or stop watching the news as much as you can. Now, it's difficult to even say that because we are literally surrounded by what's happening at the moment. It is on the radio, it is on the news, it is in conversation. It has replaced the Irish small talk of the weather. It is now coronavirus. Everywhere you go, it is mentioned. And everywhere you go, you are reminded of it, whether it's by seeing people with masks, by seeing the stickers on the floor, the yellow and red stickers, or sorry, the yellow and black stickers. In our heads, before we even leave the house, we're thinking coronavirus. So in some ways, how are we expected to be motivated? How are we expected to be focused on our work, or to want to set goals, or to look ahead when nobody, even the government, doesn't know what way this is going to go? It's so easy to just say, oh, well, 2020 is written off. What's the point in looking towards anything positive this year? It was a shambles of a year, and let's just hope 2021 is better. But to look forward to the end of 2020 is to wish your life away, for starters. We still have months left. If we were to even break it down even further and to look at just this month, we are on, what date are we on? We're on the 8th of September. It's the first week of the month. There's absolutely loads of time within this 1 month to set goals, small obtainable goals, and to work towards them. Now, if I was to talk about simple goals within work, I could be talking as small as, if you feel like you've lost that bit of confidence, as small as make yourself speak to somebody. When you go into work tomorrow, if you're working in your office space, make yourself speak to someone as you're passing. But in terms of actual productivity levels, I would say write them down, write your goals down, but don't go beyond weekly. So if you write them down, small obtainable goals, and check them off at the end of the week. And if you make them obtainable enough that you can achieve them, when you look back on them within that week's time, if you haven't achieved them, it's down to you and it's on you, which means there's no excuses. I think the problem with goal setting usually is that we set massive goals. So if I was to talk about, just even in terms of fitness, if I was to say, I want to lose weight. First of all, that's a very general, broad goal, but it's also focusing on one thing, which is a big thing. To lose weight it's a big life change, but it can also have a feeling within you that creates this almost obsession that if you only want to lose weight, suddenly you find yourself stepping on the scales more than once a day. Maybe you find yourself longing for certain foods. You find yourself focusing on things you can't have. You find yourself calorie counting. All of this is quite a negative thing. Whereas if you were to shift your mindset ever so slightly and set a goal, like, say there's a mountain nearby that you've been meaning to climb and you never did, you've maybe never climbed a mountain of this size before, set that as your goal. And as much as that seems like quite a big goal initially, it's tricking your mind into doing something slightly different. So to explain a little bit better, if you set the goal of climbing that mountain, rather than losing weight, you will then set micro goals within this. So the main goal is, I want to climb that mountain by, and set yourself a time frame. I want to climb that mountain by, let's say, the end of October. So that gives me a certain amount of weeks to get my training to a certain level and to get my fitness to a certain level that I can get to the top and safely get to the bottom. So then you find yourself figuring out how you're going to do that. You're going to break it down week by week. You're going to figure out a training plan. You're probably going to join a gym. Yes, you'll look at your food intake, etc., but you won't focus on it. And a really positive side effect to setting that goal will be weight loss. So that slight shift in mindset has the power to change quite a lot of things. And within work, you can do the same thing. Rather than focusing on, I want to be the number one by Christmas, but you've no real idea how you're going to get there, that's a goal that can so easily just end up falling by the wayside. Whereas if you say to yourself, by this time next week, I have 10 things on my list that I want to tick off that will get me that one step closer to being the number one in my department. suddenly that big goal becomes so much more attainable, and you're focusing on lots of positive, smaller goals. So as I said, small attainable goals in work, at home, fitness, and in mental health. I always say that these four things are quite linked. If you are doing well in work, the chances are you're going to bring that positive feeling home with you. If you're doing well at home, you're going to bring that positive feeling into work. If you're not doing well at home, you're also going to bring those negative feelings with you into work. The work-life balance, you know, it's all well and good saying that we have that balance, but a lot of the time, if you've ever had a really stressful day at work, how many times we've been able to completely park it up and just go home and be a completely different person with the family? Chances are you will bring that stress and that mood home with you. And it's the same with fitness and mental health. If you are doing well with fitness goals, and if you are feeling good with what you're doing, with what you're achieving through your fitness journey, the chances are your mental health will be on the up. Your positive mental attitude will be at an all-time high because you're achieving fitness goals. And we all know that there's actual links between fitness and positive mental health, but it also works on the reverse. If you're not achieving things that you want, that you set out to achieve in your fitness journey, you're going to start feeling bad about it. And once you start feeling bad, it can snowball to the point where you feel, oh, it's been too long since I've been training. I can't go back. I'm too embarrassed to go back, so I'm just going to leave it. It's the same at work. If you have a goal that you've been putting off, or a task that you've been putting off for a long time, and you feel it's snowballing and other tasks are coming in at you while you're still ignoring this one task, very quickly that feeling that I mentioned at the beginning, that feeling of growing anxiety, can become all-consuming to the point where you just can't deal with it. And everything that you set out to achieve just goes away. You can't achieve it at all. So small obtainable goals in all of these four areas and monitoring them. I cannot stress this enough. Just saying to yourself, yes, I'm going to do this, that, and the other in these four different areas, and not doing any actual planning, you are 100% setting yourself up for failure. So what I would actually recommend you do after this is to sit down, think about things, think about the goals that you want to set, and set realistic timeframes. When you fix one, the rest will naturally follow. As I mentioned, if you fix your mental health, if you fix your fitness, you will automatically fix your mental health to a certain degree. Obviously, there's certain factors that we can't control. And that's one thing that I really want to stress, is that within this year, there are certain things that are completely out of our control. You know, everything that's going on outside and all that noise, we can't control it. However, we can control where it comes in. As I mentioned about whether it comes in through our TV, whether it comes in through the radio, we can control that. How we choose to look at it and how we choose to, as I would say, embrace it is fully within our control. So if we were to look at lockdown, just as an example, so many people that I met after lockdown said, oh my God, wasn't it just terrible? Wasn't it the worst thing? Wasn't it this, that, and the other? But because I faced serious hardship numerous times throughout my life, I personally didn't think it was that bad. I'm used to looking at things from another point of view. So I actually fully enjoyed having a bit of downtime. I enjoyed being with my family who are very close to me. I enjoyed having a bit of space. I went for walks with my dogs. Obviously, we had that glorious weather at the start of lockdown. I enjoyed that. And I appreciated every single day that I had the freedom to do this. And that is what's so important. And I had control over those thoughts. Once we change our mindset, and I'm going to repeat this numerous times before we finish up, once we figure out how to change our mindset, everything becomes so much easier. But it's not a simple task. You know, if you were to actually set changing your mindset as a goal, if you were to try and list the micro goals that would be needed to change this, you'd be looking at probably about a year's worth of work, which can seem absolutely terrifying. It is a gradual thing. However, I suggest that one of your weekly goals every week be keep an eye on your mindset. Keep that at the forefront of your mind, because your positive mindset and having a positive attitude, regardless of what you feel you are as a person inside, a lot of people say, I'm not a positive person. I'm just not that way, and therefore I'm never going to be able to think this way. That's not true. There are ways around that. As much as you may feel on a day-to-day you've negative thoughts, you can change that. Small steps lead to great results, but you have to be consistent. So what's next? I'm going to finish up now soon, and I'm going to open it up to some questions if you have some. So I would suggest that you have a little think. I would like to take enough time for us to maybe have a discussion afterwards. But what I would say to you is spend at least 10 minutes after this presentation is finished, just sitting wherever you are, if you have the luxury of just being able to sit for 10 minutes, and plan the next 2 months between now and Christmas. Don't even think beyond Christmas, because if you try and guess what 2021 has in store, God only knows, we don't know. And you know what? I think we're better off not knowing. We will deal with it if and when we have to. But for now, I want you to plan between now and Christmas. I want you to write down a list of the things that are currently worrying you, a list of the things that you would really love to achieve. And I mean big blockbuster goals, things that you would love to just try, whether it's singing, whether it's some sort of crazy fitness adventure, whether it's trying cooking, you know, but not just normal cooking. I'm talking MasterChef level. Write down big goals in your second list. And in your third list, I want you to write down the small weekly list, or the small weekly goals for this week. And at the end of that, I want you to remind yourself to do it next week. And at the end of that list, I want you to remind yourself to do it next week. And next week and next week until you get to Christmas. That's all I want you to think about between now and Christmas. Set yourself specific, obtainable goals, and make sure you get out there and achieve them, because you do have the control. I work from this space in Donegal. I have to deal with things like poor internet. I live in a stone cottage. The internet trying to get through is an absolute nightmare at times. That is out of my control. However, what I can do is work as hard as I can when I do have good internet, think as positively as I can, make the most of every opportunity that's coming along, most of which this year has come from the setbacks caused by Corona. There is opportunity within every setback. You just have to be willing to look. So please do take those few minutes after this, make your lists, and just have a think, a really honest think about how you felt up to now. Have you been overly negative, or have you felt you've kind of accepted it, got on with it, embraced it? If you haven't embraced it, it's totally fine, but it's not too late. Don't write off the end of the year. We're only in September. Finding your motivation starts from within, and once you have found it, come 2021, you will be hitting the ground running. The goals that you will set for next year, regardless of what we face as a nation, you will be able to achieve them in some way. The goalposts may shift ever so slightly, but you should still be able to achieve what you set out to achieve because of your mindset. Might not make sense now, but believe me, next year, if you do this every single day, it will just click into place and you'll be like, oh, that's what she was on about. What I will say is I've purposely left my information on screen. Some people don't like putting questions up in front of people. By all means, please do get in touch, either through my website, Instagram, Twitter. To be honest, the only thing I'm not on is Snapchat, so you'll get me on everything. If you have a story to share that is maybe leading to you feeling a certain way, please do share that as well, because we all have a story. We all have a reason as to why we feel the way we feel. And coronavirus or no coronavirus, we all had stuff going on before this, and that just added to the mountain of things we had to deal with as adults that were on our plate. And sometimes you can feel you're juggling everything, and it can feel absolutely overwhelming, and that there's no out. What I will say is there always is. There's always somebody there to help. There's always somebody there to inspire, whether it's somebody you know, somebody you don't know. All you have to do is look, and look in the right direction. Best of luck.